you read People of the State of Michigan versus Adam Bradley Wittbrodt, and in the court transcripts, in parentheses, it says loud thunder heard in courtroom. And then you said, couldn't had more ominous time for that now, could we? And I was like, because I remember going into the courtroom, it was dark and cloudy, and as soon as that was read, boom. Welcome back to the Level Up Life, Muscle and Mindset Mastery. Thank you all for tuning in. It's really important. I'm grateful for all of you. So, what's your mindset? Sit back, really think about in your life, whether you're framing things positively or negatively. Your mindset shapes your reality. Your outer world is a mirror of what your inner beliefs are. And if you're rooted in fear, if your mindset's rooted in fear or lack, your reality will reflect that. But when you choose to believe in abundance, healing, purpose, gratitude, your energy begins shaping a new reality around you. And the way you look at things, your whole world will start to change. I have a special guest here today. Was part of my change. The Honorable Michael Beale. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
So let's talk about recovery court. Okay. You brought that to Midland.
Correct. Back in 2010 we started.
Yes. And I know a ton of people that it's really helped. So what made you want to bring that to Midland?
It actually started with Judge Lauterbach, who was a benchmate of mine back then. When I got the job in 2007, and at that time there was a lot of drug issues coming up in our criminal cases, and he had gone to a conference or some seminar where the concept of a recovery court or drug court was brought up, and he brought it back and we discussed it. And as I said, we both knew about the extent to which that was an issue, so based upon what the different assignments of things were, I decided I would take that project on and check it out. And I went and I investigated it, and it seemed like it was a fantastic program to have to deal with some of the issues that we were dealing with, especially with substance abuse. And so I went and we signed up. We got it put together. We have a team that we had to develop the team. And then we had to go to a conference to set up the program because the federal government was providing some startup monies for us to get it going. And in order to get those funds, we had to go to a 5-day program in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And so that's what started, and we officially started it at the end of 2010, and it's been ongoing since then. And I think I'm the only remaining member of the original team on that. And so that's how it got started in Midland County.
Yeah, so the recovery court program, I credit a lot with my ability to make changes. So as you know, and a lot of you know, I had a pretty significant substance abuse issue. And it wasn't that I didn't want change because I was desperate for it. And in my most recent time in front of a judge was with you. Right. The process of me going to rehab, me going through bi-weekly meetings in front of you and meeting with the recovery or the coordinator and the probation officer and all of that created accountability for me. So when Slick started talking, I was like, well, I got this. I think, I can't remember correctly, but I think I had a 48-month minimum because of my past.
Yeah. Because you've been to prison before.
Mm-hmm. So for me, that was like, it's 4 years. They say jails, institutions, and death. I'd experienced all of them, and I was lucky enough to be revived. So it was really, I was desperate for change. So I think it's important to highlight components to the recovery court program. The daily planner, at first I was like, why are we doing this? Mm-hmm. Fast forward to me now, I don't use the hard copy, but I use my Google Calendar. I have 2 calendars that I use that help me organize my life. And if I didn't have that, I would be going crazy. I wouldn't be where I'm at. So, what role did you have in bringing some of those components together?
Well, pretty integral because, as I said, I was part of the original formulation of it. But that's really what the recovery courts are, how they're set up. And it is, in fact, that accountability that is the basis for that. And it's been very extensively studied and is backed up by a lot of empirical evidence that individuals with significant substance use disorders, having that accountability is very important to them to be able to maintain and grow, and then and not just deal with the substance use disorder, but all the other corollary things that go with that for people that are suffering from the substance use disorder. Because, as you say, a lot of times they're not maintaining jobs, they're not maintaining schedules, their families are getting busted up because of the use that they're going through, and it is often the case that they have tried to get off the substance and to not continue to use it, but they just can't. And there's a basis for it. There's a reason for it. At some point, you have a physical change in your component of your body, where your brain is not acting like it had been before you had started using the substances, and it overrides sort of your rational thought processes. And so the idea is you have to basically rewire somewhat the thought process for people. And so that's why it's important to get them on a schedule, because that provides some stability for your thought process. Because if your mind's racing and you can't keep everything straight, it's stressful. Well, how would a person that has a substance use disorder respond? They would use as a way of escaping, at least for some period of time, even though they understand that it's not going to fix the problem. The problem's still going to be there when they are no longer under the effects of the substance, but it still doesn't stop them from doing that. Right. So that's the idea behind it. And the programs are designed that you're not to have anything more than every 2 weeks that they're in front of the judge. And the important thing about that is, for recovery court, what we do is not just to sanction them if they don't follow the rules. The important thing that we're supposed to do is to commend them for how much they do follow the rules.
Yep.
So if there's some small infraction, we should not just harp on that and ignore all the other things that they had done well.
Yeah, positive reinforcement.
Positive reinforcement, exactly. And so that was something that I have found to be useful, not just in recovery court, though. That's something you can use in all the different types of cases where you have somebody that has some significant issues. If they are doing, or at least attempting to comply with things, you can factor that into how you're deciding how to handle the situation or how to interact with them.
Yeah.
And to get them to want to be in compliance. If you give them the positive reinforcement, yeah, I see what you're doing. I see that you are trying to make some efforts here. So that's the idea behind the recovery court, and it is set to have phase 1 is very stringent, a lot of obligations. And it's new to a lot of people that are coming off the substance use disorder to have that type of obligations, and it is overwhelming. It's intended to be overwhelming because we need them to get on a regulated schedule. And it was actually my idea to get the day planners when I first started the program because I thought that was a great, because I know I always have a day planner. I have a Franklin day planner that I've always carried since I started practicing law.
Right.
And it was very helpful for me to be able to keep all my stuff so I know where I have to be at any particular time. And since we had so many things, and I knew that I didn't want to have that, I forgot about it, that's not an excuse. If you have a day planner, you should be writing it all down, and it should be something that you can easily see, and you can't just say, I forgot about it. Because
as a business owner, too, if I said that to my clients, I forgot we had a session, I probably wouldn't be a business owner. So the meetings with you, 2 things that, we'll include the candy bar toss. So the 3 things that really stuck out to me, the candy bar toss added an element of, fun. So I'm going to catch it every time, I'm competitive. The other thing was the question you would ask. So what's one good thing?
Right.
That is really important in terms of framing, like what I was saying at the beginning. How we frame the world around us. We can be a victim to circumstance, to our environment, to our choices, or we can take charge and say, look, I look back at my multiple incarcerations and I could say, oh, my dad died, my grandpa died. That's why I went to jail and prison because I used. But although it is a mental health disorder, I still have to take accountability for my actions. So when I did that, it offered me a ton of power because I was like, well, if this is all my fault, then everything in my future is in my control. So I can make choices that are going to change my life in a positive way. And really, that phrase stems from gratitude. And I remember you saying, what's one good thing? What's one good thing? Yep. And watching other people respond. And we do that in the juvenile center, Waz and I, when we go in there.
That's great.
We ask them, what are you grateful for today?
Yeah.
Then the other thing, what's one good thing was at the beginning, and then at the end, you would say, just keep doing the next right thing. And that's a very simple phrase, but when you use that kind of to navigate moments in time where you have two choices, and it's like, okay, I had a good upbringing, and my mom, she taught me right, so I know right from wrong, and those moments, hearing that, just do the next right thing, boom. It's easy if you program your mind to react doing the next right thing. Then it becomes subconscious.
Right.
So those three things really stuck out for me.
Okay.
I'm not sure how other participants really view those, but I know it made a big difference in my life. Did you implement those things?
Yes, actually I did. The one good thing is, it kind of goes on the positive reinforcement aspect of things, is we're not just focused on substance use disorder. So actually there's two things I always ask at the beginning. What's the days of sobriety? Because that clearly is an issue. It's a drug court, recovery court. So that's, and the other thing is, what's one good thing? Because we want you to feel that something good has happened to you to be in this program. And it could just be, I didn't test positive. Okay. That's a positive reinforcement. Or I got to see my kids, or I got a job, or I'm reuniting with family members. Those are all things that are just so fantastic to hear, and then makes them articulate it. Because once you have to articulate it, you're thinking about it, and it kind of reinforces in your mind, yeah, that is a good thing. And that is probably because I'm in this program that I'm getting to do some of these things because I wasn't doing it before.
Right.
And so that was when we got the training, they were saying those are the kind of things. And it just seemed to me, well, if they have at least one positive thing that's happened to them, because it's 2 weeks, then that'd be good. Usually it's 3 or 4 things that the participants are bringing up. And I think that's great too. I don't want to limit them and say you can't say anything more, because they want to share, and it's in front of all the other participants. So it's a public display for them to speak. And if they're willing to do that, I want to encourage that, because that reinforces they're getting some good out of the program. So yeah, that was what I decided, and I've done it ever since we implemented the program. And the same thing with the do the next right thing. That's not only to make the decision in the moment, but if you made a bad decision, you could correct it. It doesn't mean you have to continue to make bad decisions because the first one was not a good one.
Right.
And so that's why I focus on that too, is, okay, this is where you're at. What's the next right thing to do? What's the next right decision you can make that would be best for you or for handling the situation? And what I often will say, because we have a lot of rules. I mean, it's a very intensive, and you have to sign a document that lays out a lot of rules, and we add things as we go along depending on the person. But I like to kind of simplify it by saying, look, if you kind of use this as your gauge, that would I want to explain what I'm doing to Judge Beale? And if your answer is no, I would not want to explain it to him, then you probably shouldn't be doing it.
Right.
And that's a real simple rule to follow. You should know the rules as best you can, but that would be a good guidepost to help you out. So that was kind of the concept of doing the next right thing is just kind of think, would I want to have to explain what I'm doing? And if I had to come up for an excuse, then it probably is not a good idea for me to do it.
Right.
So that was kind of the concepts that I had for that process. The candy was actually an interesting one, I thought. I'd gone to a couple of seminars on other issues, not on recovery court, and the presenters had basically thrown a question. If somebody in the audience had a right answer, they threw them a piece of candy, just a little something to do to create a little interaction. And I was thinking, that's probably in recovery court we have the candy, and then we have the fishbowl.
Right.
And the fishbowl is when somebody is 100% compliant for the 2 weeks, their name goes into the fishbowl, and they're drawn and they win a $25 gift card, which to somebody like me, not a significant issue, but somebody in recovery court, that often could be some food that they're getting that they may not otherwise have had the ability to get.
Or gas to get to work.
To get to work or those types of things. So it has some significance to them, as well as an acknowledgement, which I think is really the more important thing from my perspective, an acknowledgement that they have done well and that they have complied with all the rules. But I also wanted to have something that would be available if somebody had not had a positive test. If they had not tested positive, because it's a recovery court,
Right.
and we want to definitely make sure we acknowledge that they've not used. And, because as you know, there's a color line and you have to call, so you don't know when you're going to get tested, so it's very hard to cover up.
Phase one, you're going in very frequently.
Yes, and it's not a set number of times per week. Sometimes it could be 1, sometimes it could be 4. And we have to do it that way, and that's part of the process. But so my idea was, well, let's give them just a little piece of candy as an acknowledgement that at least they didn't test positive. And if they fishbowl, they can be fishbowl and candy eligible. It's not one or the other. And so I did that at the beginning, and I decided, well, I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to throw it to the participants. So they're maybe like 15, 20 feet away. So I mean, it's a throw, but not too bad of a throw. And it does become funny to see the participants, how they try to catch it. Sometimes they miss it and they get a little embarrassed, and everybody kind of laughs. But it's all in good fun, I think, from my perspective.
And it lightens the entire mood in there.
Yeah.
So.
And so they had that aspect to it as well. And so I had done that for a first couple of review hearings. And then I asked the team, I said, well, what do you guys think? And they said, we think it's kind of hokey. And, I said, okay, I won't do it. That's fine. I tried it. If you don't think, next time I didn't do it, the participant said, where's our candy? and then it clicked in my head. It's not the candy. It's the acknowledgement from the person of authority. Job well done.
Yep.
And a connection that is being made between them by having that interaction occur above and beyond just talking to each other. And so I have done it every time since then. And I'm really glad that we stuck with it, because I talked to a lot of other participants and graduates, and they've indicated that they thought that was a good idea as well. So I presume you probably think it is as well.
Yeah, it made it fun, right?
Yeah. So that was kind of the idea behind those aspects of things is, and that's kind of the nice thing about this program is we can gear it as we want to. It's not it's not set up in the traditional, very staid, formalistic kind of a courtroom appearance. It's much more informal. There's a lot more interaction. There's clapping because we always the days of sobriety. You say the days, no matter what the day is. If it's one day, we all clap.
Right. Because
we want to encourage somebody as they're at least trying to maintain some sobriety. So there's clapping in the courtroom, which hardly ever happens in an environment like that. So those are the things that we implemented and we have pretty much stuck with since the beginning back in 2010. So going on our 15th year now.
Yeah, those things made a huge difference for me. So they're working, at least with one person, right?
I have a feeling that you're not the only one.
Yeah. So the other thing is with you talking about all the rules, right? So my mindset going into it, and I, fellow participants, other recovery members in the community, I remember them jokingly calling me Captain Drug Court. And it was because I went into it like, so there's all these rules to follow, my part of my past was trying to manipulate the system. Well, I'm an opiate addict. If I have a prescription, I can still use those types of things.
Yep.
I'm only dropping once a month, so I'm going to drink instead. So, and it would be a substitution. But I went into the recovery court, and I told myself, and this is me choosing to frame my mindset in a way. I told myself, if I can't follow the simplest rules, then with all of this hanging over my head, how am I going to be able to follow the laws of the land when I get off supervision? So it was a really big deal to me to, follow even the simplest rules. Well, I can't be around felons, so other felons, but this person isn't, they're doing great. Why can't I be around them? Well, I don't necessarily agree with every speed limit, but I didn't make the speed limit. I got my license. Part of that is an agreement to follow those speed limits, and there's consequences if I don't. So same concept, different level of, consequence. But
Yep. And that's really important for I think it's important for people to understand eventually when they're in the program. Some of them start like you, where you were very motivated at the beginning. And I can't remember, but I think you didn't have any violations, if I remember correctly.
The one time I remember I didn't get a violation for it, but Brian Magnapora was my probation officer, and I was in communication with someone about a gym membership who had a felony, and I didn't have them approved. So it was work related, but
not egregious enough for us to sanction you for it.
Right. Okay. So he said, you need a business line. And then my boss, Brian, at the time was like, all right, we'll make that happen.
Yeah.
So
that would be, so you were never sanctioned at least for anything if you did violate any of the rules. And so, and that's the thing that we're looking for, is to get that, but it would be unreasonable for this population that we're drawing from to think that that's the case. And it's not uncommon for somebody to not be motivated like you when they first started in this program. So I acknowledge that as well. We would love it. It makes it better for the person and for us to get a better result if they are. But we understand that that's not the case, because a lot of times it's a diversion from going to prison or for a long time spending in jail. And that's really what they're motivated to, is to get out of that punishment. The important thing, though, is for them to finally to accept that this is something good, because we're doing more than just trying to keep them sober. That's really not the main motivating factor for what we're trying to do. We're trying to get them so when they're done with the program, when they go out there, they could continue to operate as they had been under our supervision. And following rules, even if you don't agree with them, in society is very important. We don't get to set our rules for a lot of things that we have to abide by. Even I, as a judge, I have rules I have to follow.
Right.
And if I don't agree with them, doesn't mean I can just disregard them. And if I do, I have possible consequences from the Judicial Tenure Commission or some other body, or the voters may say, we don't want you to be a judge anymore.
Right.
So it's really important for us to instill in our participants, you got to follow our rules. You may not like it. You may not understand the reason why, but we almost always have a reason why we're having these rules put in place. And what we also try to do is have the opportunity, if you need an exception from that rule. If you need to have contact with a felon, okay, tell us why you need to have contact with that felon. We can give you permission if it makes sense to us.
Right.
Or if you need to be somewhere, or if you have a curfew issue, and you need an exception because we have a curfew at the first few phases. If you need an exception, let us know. Put it in writing, submit it to us, and we can evaluate. So we give you the process and the understanding how the rules are set, but they're not set in stone, that they can't possibly be modified if the circumstances warrant, because rules simply can't be written to take into every consequence in life.
Right.
And so we instill that way, okay, this is the process, but you have to be proactive on it. You can't just decide you're going to do it and say, oh, I'm sorry. So it's don't ask for forgiveness, ask for permission.
And I had to do that at one point in time with There was a recovery softball tournament, and the time we had to leave, if my color was called, I wouldn't have been able to make it to the tournament and drop. So I remember working with the coordinator. I had to set up drop and pay for it out of my pocket.
In the place you were going?
Yeah, in the place I was going to be able to, and it, I went, my color was called, went there, tested, everything was good, but I had to go through the process of getting all that lined up, which at the time I was like, this is stupid, but I understand it now. And that's a lot of things in life. We may not understand it in the moment. And then when we reflect, we're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. And it's interesting you say that. As an employer now, I think you probably have a different perspective on kind of those things too. Your expectation is employees should be following your rules. Once again, if there's an issue, they should come talk to you about it, not just disregard your rule because they don't want to or they don't think it applies in this situation. So that is something that is a neat perspective to bring. I think was it Petoskey that you had to go up for that software?
I think it was actually Flint.
Okay.
Because it was Soberfest, I believe.
Okay.
So
yeah, but that's the idea behind it is that once you get out in life, you're going to have these. And once again, that has absolutely nothing to do, well, it had because of the testing, but it has nothing to do with the life skill of substance abuse, substance use disorder.
Right.
It has all the how do you behave in, not get yourself in problematic situations by failing to follow rules that are in place. And so that's the idea of all those additional things besides substance use disorder, education, and learning how to maintain recovery.
Yeah. So as the recovery court judge, it has to be rewarding when you see people, reunify families, they change their lives and maintain that for years beyond. It's got to be rewarding for you.
As a judge, that is the most rewarding experience I've had in my position, by far. It's not often in my line of work I get that kind of positive feedback from my work. At best, in a case, it's a 50% like what I decided, and that's best case scenario. Sometimes 100%. Nobody likes what I did.
Right.
And in criminal cases, especially, you don't get a whole lot of happiness. Now, that being said, I've had some people I've actually sent to prison that have seen me out in public, and they thanked me for sending them to prison because they, on their own, turned the life around. But to be in the recovery court program, and every 2 weeks you develop a relationship with these participants that's much different than the traditional criminal justice probation, because you delve into their lives, and I know all about them. I know what they're doing all the time. And because we meet before our review hearings with the team, and we basically go over what's happened in the last 2 weeks with everybody, each participant we cover. And to me, the most gratifying part of it is, I believe and I think yours was included, in every graduation, the most significant thing that is appreciated by the participant is reunification with family and friends. And the building the relationships that had been ripped apart or seriously hampered by the use of the controlled substance. And to hear the family members and especially the children of participants get up and say how grateful they are, you can't, that is something I can't express enough on how gratifying that is for me as the judge presiding over that. And I think for the team as well. I mean, that's, and I have to say, I'm really fortunate. We have a fantastic team of the team members for our recovery court team, and they're all dedicated. They all have the same goal. We want to help as much as we can to get the participant to be successful long term. Yeah. And so that is just wonderful for all of us when there's a commencement ceremony to see that happen.
Now let's take a moment to thank our sponsors, Pine Haven Assisted Living. At Pine Haven Assisted Living, they believe in making every resident feel at home. Nestled in the peaceful countryside of Hemlock, Michigan, they offer compassionate care in a family-like environment where residents can enjoy independence with the support they need. Registered nurse-owned and operated, their team provides personalized care, home-cooked meals, and arrange activities to ensure your loved ones continue to live a fulfilling life. They also have alpacas and llamas on site to enrich the lives of their residents. Experience the warmth and comfort of Pine Haven. Call them today at 989-295-6632. That's 989-295-6632. Or you can visit them on their website at pinehavenassistedliving.com. That's pinehavenassistedliving.com for more information. Now, back to the Level Up Life. So, rewinding back to my time, and this is relevant because today's date, August 8th, it seems insignificant, but for me, in 2007 is when I was arrested.
Okay.
And then Judge Lauterbach sentenced me to SAI boot camp. I had an injury I sustained, got sent home on tether, violated my probation, and my probation violation hearing was in front of you, which I was like, awesome, I don't have John Lauterbach, you know, and I was happy for that. So in your courtroom, I remember very vividly, and I have the court transcripts because I was like, I can't believe that happened. It's like a movie. I remember, you read People of the State of Michigan versus Adam Bradley Wittbrodt. And in the court transcripts, in parentheses, it says loud thunder heard in courtroom. And then you said, couldn't had more ominous time for that now, could we? And I was like, because I remember going into the courtroom, it was dark and cloudy. And as soon as that was read, boom. And I just was like, I knew. Part of me too knew because when I was in front of Judge Lauterbach and was originally sentenced, he had told me, if I see you in my courtroom again, going to prison. So why this date's relevant, my sentencing date was set for August 8th of 2008 in front of you. So 17 years later, here we are. But I remember getting notice the week before or something, and they shifted my sentencing date to 8/15/08.
Okay.
And I was shifted from your courtroom
Back to Judge Lauterbach.
And I was like, this isn't good. And then I was sentenced to prison. And he was a man of his word. He warned me.
Yep.
I didn't like him at the time and for future months, but talking graduations from recovery court, it was really cool to see relationships that I had established through Rotary and in the community during my time in drug court, and seeing Judge Lauterbach come to my graduation. And I remember he teared up and we hugged, and, you know, I held him responsible for me going to prison for many years until I realized in treatment, like, my life is 100% where it is because of my choices. He's doing a job. So that brings me to my next question. Sure. With being a judge, I try and I imagine myself, you know, I'm on the bench, I'm a judge, and think about the different scenarios that you guys are put in on a regular basis. In serving our community, there's a lot of things I'm sure. I think of the individual who's a second offense, criminal sexual conduct of a minor, and I'm just like, I get this anger inside of me. And then there's other scenarios where maybe the individual was drinking and driving and killed someone, and they have to live with that consequence, and then you have to give them the consequence for the law on top of that. So I guess the question is, how do you not get emotional, let your emotion drive decisions? How do you not take that stuff home with you? How do you not, because just thinking about it, I'm like, man, the emotional maturity and stability that judges have to have is something I haven't experienced. I don't have the ability to separate that and not take that anger and aggression or sadness back home to your family. That has to be another level of just being able to compartmentalize emotions, I guess. So how do you do that?
Well, I can say how I do it. I can't tell you how all judges do it, but I don't think they'd probably be a whole lot different than the way I handle things. And it does take a strong mental mindset and an appreciation for what your job is. I am there as a person that has to adjudicate a case and to mete out justice and do what I think is a just result for it. And there are some cases that are much more difficult than others, that's for sure. But quite honestly, the approach I take is not a whole lot different depending on the severity of the case. I've been fortunate in my history and my background in the law. When I got out of law school, I actually clerked for Justice Brickley of the Michigan Supreme Court for 2 years. That was a wonderful experience, and interactions with him, he was just very insightful and helpful for me to understand how a judge should think and how should act in regards to handling their cases. He had been a lieutenant governor before he was a Supreme Court justice, and he was an FBI agent before that. So he had a wonderful background, and it was just great for me to have that experience. And I was also fortunate, my father was also a judge. And so I had the opportunity. Now, unfortunately, he passed the same year that I got appointed to the position. He passed away about 6 months before that, so he never actually got to see, which is one of the biggest regrets I have, is that because I know he would have just been so happy. And ironically enough, the courtroom I preside in is one that he had presided in as a judge as well. So I feel his presence, even though he was never there for when I was actually a judge. But I think, quite honestly, the way that I handled it the best was actually advice from my mother. When I first started practicing law, I remember she told me, she said, Michael, you did not create these problems for these people. You're only there to handle them. Don't make their problems your problems. And that has stuck with me even now as a judge. Is I'm there, as you said, to do my job. And as you said with Judge Lauterbach, he did his job. He said, this is what's going to happen. And he was, as you said, a man of his word, and you did what he told you not to do. And so he sanctioned you for that appropriately. But I think it was great for you to see him at your graduation or your commencement ceremony from recovery court, to see that he was happy for you. It was nothing personal. There was absolutely nothing personal about his decision that he had to send you to prison, and that's just part of the job. And if you say you're going to do something as a judge, unless you have a really good reason not to, you should follow through, because if they don't think you're going to follow through, then they're never going to believe that you're going to sanction them or you're going to do what you say you're going to do. So we do have to kind of maintain some faithfulness to what we say we're going to do. And so what I try to do, and then I've always taken the position when I was in private practice, and now especially as a judge, I never take anything home after 5. When it's 5 o'clock, I usually don't leave until about 5:30, but that's just wrapping up stuff at the office. But I never take work home, because to me, my family life is my time, and I want to spend time with my family. And if I'm thinking about work, then it's detracting from my time with my family. And quite honestly, it's wearing me down, because you burn out. If you can't separate, you'll just burn yourself out. And I'm now in my 18th year as a judge. So I don't think I would probably be able to do this much longer, or even now, if I had not separated myself. And I think that's a lot of times what judges do. And I've always taken the position, even when I was in private practice, that I don't do any work on a weekend. It's Monday through Friday. I work as hard as I can. I get as much done as I can on that time. And then the weekend, once again, that's family time. It's for me to do my things, to do my personal activities and that type of stuff. So to me, that's been really helpful. And the one thing I did start after I became a judge is I started doing yoga. And that, at first I was kind of, that didn't seem like my thing, but I think I've been doing it for 15 years at least now. And I go at least twice a week. And it is, to me, the most important part of the yoga is the mind's, the down and just kind of decompressing. The physical part of it, the stretching, and that is to me is gravy. That's an added benefit. I have about an hour where I'm not thinking about anything else, and it's usually right after work, and so I get that in, and then when I go home, I'm completely not thinking about anything else, and I'm relaxed, and just go home and have a nice evening. So that really has been helpful, and I've been doing that, like I said, at least 2 times a week for 15 plus years.
Yeah. Yoga is great.
Oh,
I've done
it's
it a few
fantastic.
times, and one of my goals for my future is to actually become a yogi.
Okay.
So the benefits mentally for exercise are the same thing. It's not all about getting stronger and losing weight, those types of things. It's about, I say, mad, sad, or glad. When I go to the gym, I leave in an improved state of mind.
Yep.
And that could be, it's very different for people, what they enjoy. Some people enjoy running, yoga, weightlifting, so CrossFit. There's tons of variations. So what that does on a chemical level for us too is it releases those endorphins and dopamine that a lot of us in active addiction were chasing from an exogenous source, right?
Yep.
We were trying to artificially stimulate our brain in those ways, and then it becomes really challenging to
Keep it up.
yeah. So with being a judge and being able to maintain that balance is hard. It's a constant for me. I'm always like, all right, I'm working too much. I need more family time. All right, I need some rec time in my life. So it's this constant juggling act. So I think it's like next level, like being able to separate the stuff that judges have to go through and not take that home. For me, I have a ton of respect for you.
Thank you.
Any judge, Judge Karras, Judge Lauterbach when he was on the bench, Judge Carpenter, anybody who can bear that weight for the community. I think it's really important to highlight that, because what you guys do in your day-to-day jobs would wear me out emotionally. It would wear me out spiritually, and I'm not built for that. That's why I'm a trainer, right? Yep. So,
and that's fair comment too. Is that I'm not certain I could be a trainer. So everybody has a niche. I think where they have some skill sets that are really able to be employed for them to be effective at that. And being a judge has certain things and certain personality traits and background, I think, that can enable you to do that the average person may not be able to. But by the same token, I certainly couldn't be a chemical engineer.
Yeah, me either.
And so thank you. I appreciate that. And I know that other judges would too as well, because we often don't get those thoughts about what we do and how difficult it really is. I think most people realize it, but don't really think about it in that sense. But we also go into it knowing that that's the job where we're taking on, because you have to have at least 5 years of practice before you become a judge. So you should know sort of what the job will entail. But it's stressful. There's a lot of significant life issues we deal with. When you're depriving somebody of their personal freedom, it's not something you could take lightly. So I think it does warrant the consideration we give it, but by the same token, we need to live our lives and not let that dominate how we're handling our own personal interactions and our own personal activities.
And for the victims, if there's a victim
yes.
in any case, right? So, there were victims in my case, and I was one of them, very well, Brett.
Okay.
You know, him and I were really great friends, and I put him in a terrible situation where he had to either pay X amount of dollars and enable me, or press charges on his best friend. So that's a, huge regret of mine. But I know since then, Brett and I have reconnected. Consider him a friend again. He considers me a friend. Obviously, our lives aren't the same, and that friendship will never be the same as what it was. But as a judge, there's you're taking someone's personal freedoms away. Then on the other side, I know when I was in front of John Lauterbach, when he was a judge, and he had the victims write a victim statement. They wanted me to serve way more time than what he sentenced me to. But I know there's also, you guys are provided sentencing guidelines.
Correct.
So from what I understand, and maybe I'm wrong, it's like a line graph. You have on one side current record variable,
Prior record variable,
and then the current offense.
And it's the offense variable, it's called, yes.
So
it's called the offense variable is the facts from this, and there's about 20 different criteria you look at and assign a number. And then the prior record variable is just what the past record of the person was before the conviction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so that scores an individual. I know when I was in front of John, it was 7 to 23 months.
Because then there's a graph, and then where those two lines intersect. That tell you the range of what the sentence should be.
Yeah,
for the minimum.
I remember the first time I was in front of him, he gave me the low end of that. So he was giving me an opportunity, and then I would have served through boot camp. I would have actually served, I think, 7 months total.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Yeah,
3 in boot camp, 4 in jail, and then I would have been on probation. And then when I went back in front of him, he sentenced me to the max of those guidelines, which I, from a mindset perspective, doing time and sitting in quarantine in Jackson, I remember counting out how many days, and I started looking at months, and then I was like, well, I have this X amount of seasons I have to do, and it was like really overwhelming. So in general, that taught me something, a life lesson when I have issues, and it can be goals too. You look at it at positive, negative. I have a goal or something I'm dealing with that's negative. If I look at the big picture, I can get overwhelmed. So it's just like with recovery, one day at a time. I was serving one day at a time. I couldn't serve 3 months all at once, as much as I wish I could have. And then same with goals, like business goals, whatever a person has. I think it's better to focus on what can I get done today. That's going to help me get there.
Exactly. What you can get done, I was going to say, is that, you could just sit there and do nothing for 3 years, or you could, because there's a lot of services in prison, and you could take advantage of that opportunity, even though nobody wants to be in prison, but instead of just sitting there doing nothing, take the opportunity. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense to me. And to follow up on what you said about the victims, they are very important. We give serious consideration to what they have to say, and we factor that in. But when we get in circuit court, when we do a sentencing, I get like a 20-page report that seriously details the events in question, the criminal history, employment history of the defendant, and there's a victim impact statement that can be provided by the victim if they wish to do so, if there is a victim. There's some cases that are non-victims circumstances, like possession, that would not have a victim. But they have the right, and that is all factored into the decision. And I'm not saying any one thing overrides it. You, as a judge, you take all that information in, and then you do have the guidelines that gives us it's a recommendation. It is not an ironclad that we have to be within those ranges, but it is sort of the starting point. And if we don't, we kind of have to justify why we gave something either over the guideline range or under the guideline range. And so that's the process that you go through as a judge. You take all that information in, and then you say, well, what's appropriate? And then what I've also tried to do is, what will be the impact of what I do on going forward for this individual? Is there something there that I should give them an opportunity to prove themselves to me, and therefore maybe not give as big as long of a sentence as I otherwise might have? Mm-hmm. Or are they clearly not remorseful? Are they clearly not going to be doing anything? And so therefore, why give them the opportunity to prove themselves? So those are all kinds of different things you factor into your decision-making process. And there is no real template that you can say, this is this case, this type of charge, and this is what I'm going to give. You don't do that. It has to be individualized. Mm-hmm. And you take all those factors in, and you just come to what you believe to be the correct answer at that point in time. And hopefully you were right in your assessment of how it gets handled.
Well, and that's why, you didn't just decide one day, I'm going to be a judge tomorrow. You've went through law school. You've went through 5 years, you said?
No, I actually was a practice attorney for 17 years before I was a judge.
Yeah, so it's a minimum for a judge, 5 years.
Right.
So you have a ton of experience going into this. So you're not just, winging it. Like if I was a judge, it takes a lot of qualifications, a lot of experience, and
I think to be an effective judge, you should have an extensive amount of experience before you're on the bench. I think it's very difficult, even with like I said, I was in practice for 17 years and then 2 years as a Supreme Court clerk. And even then it took me, and I had done general practice, so I handled almost every type of case that I still handle now as a judge before I was on the bench. There's some that I do that I hadn't handled, but not many. It even then took me a while to get accustomed to being the judge and to understand my role and how things should be handled and the processes, and be familiar with the types of cases that I'm handling day in and day out. So the more experience you have, the better you are to turn that around and become adept at the work of a judge.
Mm-hmm. And I'm sure there's a learning curve for someone who starts a position like that, like when they, not necessarily even on the job, but now you're community leader, and how that affects how you carry yourself in the community and how you engage with the public, and
yes, it does,
that type of thing. I know and being a business owner, all that stuff's really important, right? Yep. And I think for a mayor, a police officer, the chief of police, the sheriff, all it makes a difference.
It should, and hopefully in their mind it does. Mm-hmm. To be a person in the community that's recognized, and to uphold the integrity of the system, and for the judiciary, yes, we should have a certain level of decorum that we maintain. We should be perceived as honest, decent people that follow rules, and I think that's not too hard of a bar to meet at a minimum.
One skill I've learned since getting into recovery is, and I imagine that you have a very refined ability to take your emotion out of it, to empathize with all parties, so, and I try and do that with situations with my clients. Like, this is this individual's history. This is their goal. Based on what they told me, I imagine they feel this way. And if I can connect with how they're feeling, I can be a better trainer for them.
Yeah. I think as a judge, it's the same. And I think it's important to realize there's a difference between empathize and sympathize. Mm-hmm. Empathize as you understand it. Sympathize is mean you're feeling for it. Mm-hmm. As a judge, I'm not here to sympathize.
Right.
I'm here to understand and to take in that information and then to use that as part of my decision-making process, and which I have really appreciated some of the training I've gone to for recovery court, because I didn't have experience in substance use disorder. I had really not had to deal with it other than maybe some clients that I had in private practice, and with people that were coming through the system, mostly through probation. So I really hadn't had much training in regards to the things that could arise with somebody in a substance use disorder. But what I learned is it allows me to empathize as how I can understand a person would act in a way that I find completely illogical, maybe even insane, because they're really not controlling their thought processes. Is that there is the body itself is sort of overriding the judgment aspect of their brain, and the physicality of it is sort of pushing them to do these things, even though I would think they know that they're not making good decisions for themselves, and they're probably seriously jeopardizing the quality of their life and their relationships. So it allows me to empathize, to understand how they can do it, but I certainly am not going to sympathize and say you're excused for your behavior. Right. Your behavior is still your behavior. But okay, we can understand it, so let's deal with that so that doesn't happen anymore, and we change the way that thought process occurs. And so that's, I think, a significant portion of our job as judges is to be able to empathize without being sympathetic towards what they have done.
Right. Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Empathy is a skill you can cultivate, right? Yep. And having to do that in your position is probably one of the most challenging jobs on the planet. Yes. I have a great deal of respect for you.
Well, thank you.
For your impact on my life, for what judges across our country do, the weight that they bear, personal and community-wide. And I just want to say thank you to you for what you do, bringing drug court, recovery court here, because I personally know many people who have had significant changes in their lives, who are now impacting others' lives that they have no connection to recovery court. Yep. So it's the ripple effect. And how,
I was just going to say the same thing. Yeah.
How our day-to-day interactions, and you can think of a micro level of holding the door for someone, or a macro level being a judge. It could be mentoring a youth. It could be visiting someone at the hospital. These little things and how we behave on a daily basis that it may seem insignificant to us, it can be very significant to someone else.
And it doesn't even have to be the person you're interacting with. It could be somebody seeing you do those things, especially I believe in the substance use disorder realm in recovery. Seeing somebody out there that is actively in recovery and doing well and has things going good for them is so helpful for people that are just coming into recovery, to have that hope that I can be there at some point in time if I maintain my recovery or I stick with this program. Because if you don't have that hope of something better out there, it's very hard, because it's a difficult road to go through substance use disorder, especially at the beginning. If you're having withdrawals, or life is going to get you with stress. If you're just coming out of jail, because you got all this stuff thrown right back at you. And if you don't have some way to handle it, and then some hope, well, if I do this and I work this hard, is it going to really be any different for me? And if you see somebody that has gone through this and is coming out apparently better, no, we don't know for sure what their internal thought, but they appear to be doing good. They appear to have good relationships. To me, that is impactful beyond what we even know we're doing.
I could list off a bunch of names. When I got back from treatment and started my recovery court journey, the first meeting I went to, there were 5 people I knew that embraced me. They hugged me. They had years in, and that same thing happened in the future meetings I went to, and people really embraced me. And what that did for me, like what you were saying, is I seen this gentleman. This gentleman's doing it. Yep. Andy.
Oh, sure.
He was he wouldn't mind me mentioning his name. Yeah. He was huge in my early recovery days. He had a way about him that he could be serious, and funny at the same time. So it kept my shorter attention span at that time. And he's like, if I can do it, you can do it, dude. You know, so that support in the beginning and me being able to, not just him, but these other people kind of mirror what they're doing, got me through those early months, the first year.
And it's so important, I think, for especially in recovery, not just recovery, but in a lot of life, but especially in recovery, is having somebody that has walked the walk, has been down the same type of road, has encountered some of the same issues, and appears to be addressing them. It appears to be able to move on and to move beyond those past behaviors is so crucial. And the other thing that's really important in the recovery community I've found, which I've just been so blessed to be a part of seeing this is from my position, is how you hold each other accountable. Having not really been in that sphere, I really have probably not as much ability to able to see when somebody is or is not really behaving themselves the way they're supposed to. But people in recovery, they seem to have a knack or intuitive sense that they can sense when somebody's not really following the rules, or they're using again, or they're at a point where they might be start to use again, and they call each other out about it. And that's so huge. And if you don't have that, if you're not engaged in that community, you're not getting that feedback, and you're not having somebody help you before you go down the wrong road. And then once you go down the wrong road, say, well, I might as well give up. I went down the road, instead of once again make the next right decision.
Right.
If I relapse, let's get dealing with it. Let's come out about it. And in recovery court, admit to it. And your sanction will be appropriate. It may not be as egregious if you are forthright. Say, before we test you, you come in and say, I relapsed. Okay, thank you. That's a sign that you are serious about things, and let's deal with that. Not that you're not going to get punished, but the sanction may be commensurate with what we do or do not have to do to find out that you did something wrong.
Mistakes are lessons.
Exactly
Disguise, right?
Exactly right. So that's I think that's an important message, and I appreciate that, and I'm glad you got that sense from the program when you went through it. It's important.
It is. Thank you again for what you do, and thank you for coming on. I really appreciate you.
Thank you for the invite.
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in. Don't forget, like, subscribe, share, and thank a local judge, police officer, sheriff's department deputy. Thank our local community workers. They're important.